This is Open Studio, a podcast where I invite artists that I know and admire to join me for unfiltered conversations about all things creative. My guest today is Bruno Marques. He's a young painter based in Portugal who's just getting started on his creative journey, and we had a really great time chatting about painting, marketing yourself as an artist, and all kinds of other things as well. Go and check out his work. I'll leave a link in the description. Also, if you haven't already, please go and check out my Patreon page. It's a great way to stay connected with everything that I'm doing, including the podcast, and a subscription, even in the smallest amount, makes a really big difference to me. So with that, let's get into it. I would love to start by just asking you when in your life you feel like you realized you were a creative person, or is there some moment, memory, some experience that you had where you kind of thought, oh, this is like who I am, or this is something that's important to me?
I've always been a creative person, but I've only realized that until like 4 years ago, because as a kid I would always make things and inventing things with like boxes, and I was always on the spirit of like creating. I was also as a kid playing with my toys and always imagining worlds between them. So I guess I always had that asset in me, but I only started really being into art until like 4 years ago, like from scratch, because I was studying science, so lots of numbers and chemistry and not art at all.
The opposite, you
But
could say.
yeah, the opposite. But then I realized that this was something that I really wanted to do, and right now it's even more than that. It's a necessity, you know. So I could turn back to the science branch per se, because it's a lot safer in terms of building a career and having money at all.
Absolutely, man. Yeah.
But I would never be happy if I would be happy for sure, but not fully, because I really need this in my life. That I often use a separation uh, from a person that likes to draw and an artist, and that kind of meets the one of the topics that I wanted to discuss, that I talked to you early, which is a person that likes to draw. Well, there's a lot of them, but someone that needs to draw, it's different. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. So in your mind, like, is that kind of the distinction or the definition of someone who's an artist? Is someone who has this need to be creative instead of it just being like something that they like to do kind of more casually?
Yeah, well, of course there are that shrinks a lot the people that I would consider artists. It's not that small, of course. There are people that maybe don't live the art as I need, as this intensity that I live in, but there are still artists that don't have this really intense thing, but still are.
And like, can you describe why, at least for you, like, are you able to put your finger on why you feel this need to create? Like, what does it provide you with, or what's the value? I don't know. It's something I think a lot about for myself as well, because I definitely have this, like, it's a necessity in my life. I need to do it. And for me, a lot of it comes from like supporting my mental health. Like being creative helps me feel more like mentally stable. It also comes from like feeling at home and feeling comfortable, because like throughout my entire life, the one place I could always go to where I felt safe and comfortable was whenever I was making something or imagining something. So like those two things are like big parts of why for me I need to create. I wonder if it's something you've thought about as well, if there's like one particular reason.
Yeah, normally I'm always a person that thinks a lot about things and very deeply.
Yeah, sure.
So I would say that we kind of share that thing, but I kind of developed in as I think. I developed in something I could maybe tell or write down, which is that I'm not a very good person in verbalizing things
Mm-hmm.
like feelings or, well, things that we would consider more deep.
Mm-hmm.
But in painting, well, in art in general, but in painting, which is my main field, I always can. So, and it's always difficult for other people to understand because they are not in my mind or in the process. But if I have something to say, a feeling or a doubt that I can't, when I
Mm.
paint, that makes total sense for me. Even if it's abstract, I know what that means. And this may seem like that crazy dude with the foil paper around
Yeah, yeah,
his
sure.
head, but it really makes sense for me. Or, well, we can't consider an abstract painting a sentence, but I transmitted that feeling
Mm-hmm.
with paint and a canvas.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why it's such a necessity to me, and also it really helps me cool down. And even right now, as I'm really passing through a bad phase as a mental health, painting is always the spot where things are very quiet,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
which is funny because my paintings are almost never quiet. There's a lot of
Yeah.
colors, there's a lot of movement. It's really the expressionism, but the everything seems so quiet in my head when I paint, or like there. It's like you open the gates and the water can flow.
The floodgates, yeah, absolutely.
Hmm.
It's yeah, it's interesting because I have some friends as well who are painters, and I always have like I've had this conversation with some other people as well about like the experience of working on a painting because some of my friends for them it's just pure bursts of energy. Like when they are painting, I don't want to say that it's a chaotic experience for them because I think it's quite like joyful actually, but it's like something that comes from just like pure energy and kind of adrenaline and like it's very very like high energy, whereas for me I very much agree with you where like the act of painting to me is a very quiet peaceful thing and it actually like calms me down and puts me in some kind of relaxed headspace as opposed to like invigorating me or making me feel more energized. But that's also it works for me. That's like something that I need in my life is a place to be quiet and a place to be able to kind of reflect and process my emotions, like you're saying as well, and then express them in a way that isn't necessarily something that someone else is going to understand by looking at it. Like they might see one of my paintings and not really know what my feeling was when I entered the painting or what I was trying to express. But to me, it doesn't really matter because it's more of like a therapeutic activity where like it's
Hmm.
some need for me to get an idea or a feeling out into the world, and that is the best way for me to do it. And yeah, it's cool that you have kind of this same experience of painting being a calm thing or a peaceful experience.
Well, I have to add something here because, well, I said I was quiet, but not always.
Okay, okay. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah.
Not always. So I would say that the ending of a painting session would be mostly a quiet thing, but sometimes it's really intense for me because it's like I said before, it's like the waters are stuck there and they want to come out, and I don't
Mm,
really find a lot of things that I can let those things go.
mm.
And with university it's really complicated for me to have time to paint. So when I paint, this past months, it's been kind of a chaotic experience because there are a lot of feelings and emotions that need to go, but they don't find a way if not painting.
Hmm.
So there's been a lot of times where I even cried while painting because it's such an intense thing
Wow,
for
man.
me.
Yeah.
It's such a thing that I live deep in,
Mm.
that can be chaotic sometimes.
Okay, so you have both experiences.
Oh yeah. for
Yeah,
sure.
that's really interesting. I definitely don't. Like for me, it is very much a peaceful thing, and it's yeah, which is so interesting, man. And I think it's actually reflected in your work too, because like I've seen a lot of the paintings, at least the ones that you've shared online, and there is a lot of energy in them, and also vibrance. Like the colors you use are very bright and vibrant, but for me, it has like a very energetic quality, and I think that's something that's so cool to be able to see in someone's paintings when like the energy that they're transmitting actually has some kind of representation in the final product where you can feel the kind of chaos
Hmm.
or whatever that energy is. So I guess it makes sense to me that you also have that experience. um
I guess it kind of depends on the style, like you said, because
yeah,
on your style, well, it's it has more outlines per se,
yeah.
and I really can't put paint inside a line.
Yeah, yeah.
So the style reflects on, I would say it reflects on the mental state of the artist, because on the other hand, something that I've been studying recently was um, field painting.
Sure, like plein air or yeah.
Yeah, plein air. Because I think it has a lot of things to teach me. I don't
Mm,
really think I have still all the drawing and painting skills to be a successful artist. So I'm using that to learn. And when I do that, it's always calming. It's never
mm,
stressful.
mm,
You
mm,
know,
mm, mhm.
it really reflects on the style.
So are the paintings that you're doing in the field, do they have a different, do they look different as well because of the approach that you have?
Oh yeah, they do. They really do, because I'm not trying to achieve a feeling or a theme or an emotion. I'm just trying to learn how
Hmm.
paint. It's really more of an academic experience. I'm
Sure.
just really trying to see, okay, this is that color, this is goes here. It's really only about learning.
Yeah.
But when I have all the freedom and I want to express how I feel, the style it's very different.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, man, I think this is such an amazing way to learn, especially when you're, I don't know, it seems like you've been painting for quite a while, but like even, the first like 3 or 4 years of me painting, I did a lot of plein air painting. And it was a good exercise to be able to like be somewhere not only like beautiful outdoors or in some kind of space that you were inspired by, but also to be able to like really practice observational skills because so much of painting comes from observation and what you see as well. Um, so yeah, that I mean, I'm glad that you're doing that. That's super cool. It's something that just came to my mind is that I have a really hard time. Like I've tried in the past and even recently, like I have this canvas sitting, I like hid it behind a bunch of other paintings here, but I tried to do something that was a little bit more energetic and chaotic and like free and loose because like the way that I paint is very controlled. And like
Mhm.
sometimes I get a little bit sick of like doing the same. I like being able to like move out of what I've been doing, right? And experiment because otherwise to me I get really bored. And so like I really did sit down and I tried to do something that was a little bit more chaotic, but man, I'm so like not used to it that like I couldn't like I didn't know where to go with it. Like once I was like painting very quickly with energy and like mixing my colors on the surface while they were wet and like doing stuff that I would never usually do. And it kind of scared the shit out of me actually because like I didn't know where it was taking me and I also didn't have enough confidence in that technique to be able to keep doing it. But yeah, I guess for like the question I have for you is like in that experience of like when you're painting more chaotically or you really feel something very strongly and you're expressing it, like how do you deal with the chaos, or the energy? How do you approach it in a way where you're still trying to like make something aesthetic, I guess?
Well, I thing is, if I had control over that, I wouldn't paint. I wouldn't
Yeah.
paint. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I don't think I will ever control this in my life. And with abstract, I don't know if you, when you were doing those experiments, if you did something more abstract
It was
or
still kind of
figure.
it was more figurative, like representational, but I would say like very loosely representational. Like I was being less realist about it, I would say.
Okay, so in my case, when I really want to put everything out, it's difficult for me to escape the abstract, because the moment I try to make something that makes sense in terms of
Hmm.
figures, I'm not on the letting everything out state. So when I'm full on it, it's difficult for me to not do abstract. And
Okay, I got you.
sometimes I'm trying to do a figure, and I quit. I start putting
Mm.
paints everywhere and inks, and it's because it's bigger than me.
Yeah.
Those feelings are way bigger than me, bigger than any canvas I can hold. That's why I do so many.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. I guess it is easier to kind of channel the energy when you're making something abstract. But this is like a middle ground that really fascinates me. There's some artists that I like, I don't know them personally, but like follow their work, and they are somehow able to do both, you know, where they like, you can see there's a lot of energy in their work and it feels very loose and raw, but at the same time, it's still figurative or representational. And this is something I've always wanted to be able to achieve. And it sounds like maybe you're on one side of this spectrum and I'm on the other side. But there's like that middle ground that to me, I think probably, at least I hope that in my lifetime, I will get to a point where I'm able to do that. But it's definitely a goal of mine because I really admire people who are able to strike in between somehow.
Well, that middle ground is the high quality of abstracts, I would say, because making abstract per se it's easy,
Hmm.
but being able to have all those emotions and feelings, because it's what I suppose makes abstract sense. Joining that with controlling the paint, so like representing those feelings, but still making something that aesthetically looks nice.
Hmm.
It's really challenging because you have to focus on two things:
Mm.
the basics of art, like the paint, shadows, and construct. Oh, con con contrast.
Contrast? Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Um, and representing what you feel. So those two things together are really, it's really difficult to achieve. It takes a lot of years, and maybe in 10 years I won't be able to do that. I don't. I just I just do things, and with practice things come.
Yeah, yeah,
When
absolutely.
because I mostly do, well, not mostly, but a lot of my work is abstract. I realized that I started to gain some knowledge about how colors work together. And
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't trying to achieve that,
Yeah. Yeah, so
because
okay, yeah, yeah. Go ahead, man.
for me the abstract can be really frustrating sometimes,
Yeah.
because at the same time I want to express what I want to express, but on the other hand I want something that looks nice,
Hmm.
and it's and when sometimes you can say, oh, it's so loose, it's so expressive on an abstract work I did,
Hmm.
maybe I was there like thinking, and that's the problem, you can't think with abstract.
You kind of have
I
to just
think a
feel it.
lot. I
Yeah.
think a lot when doing those things,
Mm.
because I can't let go of the thing. Oh, I can't let go of making something that looks nice for me. I really can't deal with making a painting just for yourself. And
Okay.
maybe that comes from insecurities, I'm sure, but I still want something that makes sense. It's not just an exercise.
Yeah, sure. So, okay, let me ask you this. If you're in that, you said that kind of like you're trying to balance two things, which is expressing yourself, but then also aesthetics. Like, if
Hmm.
you're in that situation, which one would you prioritize? Like, what comes first to you? Is it, would you rather make something that looks good that you didn't feel, or would you rather make something that you really deeply connected with and felt, but it doesn't look so good?
Well, that is making me really against the wall there. Well,
It's
I
like
really
picking
have
one of your
no
children.
no. You leave me no choice there. I would always have to to pick the one where I can express myself.
Yeah, the feeling. Yeah. I mean, it makes sense. It
because
also,
that's the main reason I started all this.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
4 years ago, or like 4.5, I didn't know how to draw at
Hmm.
all. This is very recent for me,
Hmm.
But just because I found this place that I didn't knew before, and it made everything made sense when I realized what the art could give me.
Hmm.
I really got into it and got better in a fast pace. I
Hmm.
really developed skills in a fast in a quick time.
Yeah. But man, this is so similar to me. I started drawing. I like, and really like, when I was a kid, I used to draw a lot, but then I didn't do it for probably 15 years of my life. You know, I never touched a pencil. I never really painted
Mm-hmm.
anything. And then maybe it was about 5 years ago, I started drawing again. And for the first time, like from scratch, basically. It was like beginning from zero. And I also like very much like the moment I started doing it, I felt an immediate connection to it. Like it was like this
Mm-hmm.
makes sense to me in a way that nothing else ever has, and it helped me to feel motivated to practice a lot and learn quite quickly. But it's yeah, this is so I don't know. This is so interesting to me when I talk to other people who kind of like rediscover creativity like a little bit later in their life. When it's, like I think a lot of people they grow up painting and drawing all the time and then they go to art school and they study something really technically. And that's like one kind of path that I think can like obviously give you a lot of success. But like for me, I can't relate to it very much because that's not my story at all. Like this is something that I discovered as an adult in my life, right? And like decided to switch directions and start pursuing it. And I think it's very cool to meet other people who have that same experience, who almost like, because for me, man, like that process is almost like returning to some part of my childhood, Like when I started painting and drawing again after so many years, like it reminded me almost of like the feeling of being 10 years old, and like imagining things and like being lost in my own world and like not really having to care about like, the reality of my life and being able to kind of escape it into this like process of making something. I don't know if that's something you also relate to at all.
The escaping part.
Yeah, or like it, like the feeling of returning to something more like what you how you felt when you were a child, like when you're painting or drawing, if that has like any if it resonates with you in any way. And maybe it
Well,
doesn't.
well, I try sometimes to make things look like child drawings. I
Okay.
don't know if that can relate to what you said. Maybe not, because I do that because I think what I want to achieve when I make things that looks like kids drawing, it's the
Yeah,
purity.
sure. Yeah.
So I don't think that really relates. But as a child, I wasn't a very good artist. So if someone looked at the things I did until like 12 years old, I would say we can consider it's the teenager.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
No one would say that I would become an artist or follow that path, because I was more in the like the smart kid that has good grades and it's really into science. That was me.
Hmm.
So I don't think no one could ever tell that I was gonna follow this. But at the same time, as I've always been a creative kid, and pro- knowing that, I think it would be natural to follow an artistic path.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it sounds like it's also an essential part of like, like you were saying earlier, it's a big part of who you are and how you like deal with your emotions. So it makes sense that you
Hmm.
would, as you get older, you would put a little bit more energy into that. Man, I literally have like 4 or 5 questions I want to ask you, but we'll take them one at a time. Relating to what you just said, uh, do you feel because you also it sounds like you said you studied science or you're going more down that route at one point in your life. Do you ever feel any like pressure, let's say, because or is it more difficult because you could do that as another path to choose the art instead?
I've lost sleep over that, definitely. Um, I do think that I accept that very good right now,
Hmm.
but yeah, that was something that really tickled me inside because I know how difficult and demanding this field is. Um, but but maybe I wouldn't even choose arts on high school if I could
Hmm.
go back.
Why not?
Um, because I think the science field it's very demanding. It's definitely well here in Portugal the most difficult subject it's math A, which is a
Hmm.
it's a specific subject that three courses have, and that's really 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 difficult. It's more difficult than anything that I had in university, for you to know.
Wow.
Yeah. So I think having those really really challenging subjects and all the calculus and stuff made me a better person
Hmm.
mentally. Um, that I don't think I would be in art. Well, I would develop the art skills, but I'm developing right now.
Hmm.
So I don't think I would change. Besides, I still love science. It's something that I really like in but as a hobby.
Okay, yeah, yeah. It's I think the opposite of what a lot of people would say, right?
Oh
Like
yeah, everyone
science
tells
is a
me, well,
hobby.
you
Yeah.
could follow, you could still do art, but as an hobby, no one really sees the art as something that you can make a life of. And I totally
Yeah,
understand that because, well, it no doubt science field has more security in
yeah.
terms of a financial thing. But like I said, I wouldn't be fully happy at
Hmm.
all. And I'm happy studying my science on my own pace. Like it's not a very intense thing. It's just something that I like to keep. I like to still know things on the science field. Maybe
Yeah.
that's an ego thing, but I still love to talk about those things, and I still love to read about them and watch videos about. But
Hmm.
it's just not something that I would go back to. I think it would even be really painful for me to return to science as a like a university thing or a job
Hmm.
because I worked so hard to achieve what I have right now. It's not a lot, but going from science to arts in terms of academics, it's not easy because I don't know how it works in your country, but here you have to have exams
Sure.
to enter in university. So to enter an arts course, you have to have arts exams, which I didn't have.
Hmm.
Which I didn't have. So I only had like two options on the old country from things I like where I could enter,
Wow.
and I entered with the Portuguese exam, which is not arts related, but some universities have that option.
Okay.
So that's why I got in because I only had two options on the old
Hmm.
country for to study what I like.
Yeah.
So
So
it
yeah.
really wasn't. Go ahead.
No, no. Man, I was just gonna say it seems like it sounds like you've already made such a difficult choice in your life, or you've already like had to kind of like jump over some hurdles or obstacles in order to just even be in the position you're at now, like pursuing art more seriously. And the idea of going back is almost like you would be losing momentum, like you're like taking a step back.
Exactly.
Yeah. This is something I
Exactly.
can definitely relate to, man. Yeah. It's
It was. Go
go
ahead.
ahead. No, no, you're fine, man. Go ahead.
It was something that really struck me down because when I realized I wanted this, I was in the middle of the science course. So I could go back. I could still go to year one of high school and study arts, but I was like, damn, it's 1 year and a half,
Mm,
and this I fought so hard already.
yeah.
Um, so I didn't go out of science, but my motivation went really down because
Mm,
I knew I didn't want that. It was already a decision. This
mm,
is not what I'm gonna do, but I still had to finish. And
yeah.
1 year and a half, it's still a long time. So I failed one of the subjects, which was precisely math A, the one
Mm,
I thought
the
won't
hard
be
one.
so.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh yeah, very hard one. And so I stayed one more year to finish that, and I didn't have enough grade for to finish. Even after on the at the end of the year, I wouldn't be able to pass again. So I would still have to stay one more year of that,
Right.
and it was already really painful for me because I was so close of getting out of this and be able to study arts, but
Mm,
I would still have to stay one more year. So I had this teacher uh, that realized that, and she talked with the math counselor
mm-hmm.
thing all that because it's such an important subject. They have they work in a group, so the teachers don't work
Sure.
alone. It's a group of math. So she talked with the other teachers, and they all agreed that it wouldn't make sense for me to stay another year.
Yeah.
So they they added 2 points on my grade for me to pass.
That's amazing, man.
And
You
and
lucky.
oh yeah, and when my teacher told me that, I just broke.
Mm,
I cried like a baby
mm,
because it's it was really difficult. And that sentence, that 2 minute talk with her meant that I was free.
yeah.
You know, I could finally study arts, and that's really something that really stayed with me. And that's probably that 2 minute talk was probably the main reason I say that I wouldn't choose arts instead of science if I could go back, because
Yeah.
it was such a hard fight, and I'm really proud of that. So yeah, I think that's it.
And it also seems like your heart wasn't in it. Like even at the end, you weren't feeling the science. Like it wasn't something
No,
that felt
no.
right to you anymore, right? And I really believe, at least for me, that like yeah, like following my instincts when I feel something like that is always gonna lead me towards something that is ultimately going to make me more fulfilled and like on a better path in my life. If I can like even if it's difficult, right? Like making that decision to listen to your gut and follow it. Um, is so now is like I know when we spoke a little bit last time you were saying that you're still studying at like a creative university or something, right? You're just like taking some art classes, but it's more like digital design or something. Can you remind me of what it is?
Well, I'm studying on like I said, I didn't enter on my first option
Yeah,
on university because we can have six. But I don't know how that works there. I'm just explaining like it's not anything like in there, the
sure.
university system. So you have six options max that you can put of courses and universities, and I only had two. So I entered one, was the second one.
Hmm.
Um, and in this school, it's not an art school. It's education
Okay,
school, but it has an arts course.
got it.
So the art environment and the creative environment are not there at
Mm-hmm.
all. Um, I still it like this course is good, but it it's good because it reaches everything. It
Yeah,
reaches everything in arts and digital. Well, I don't know the translation. Multimedia.
yeah, multimedia, sure. Yeah, yeah.
So it can go everywhere on the arts field, and that's probably the reason I don't like it, because I'm not into everything, and
Yeah.
no one is. but it really gives you the tools to explore what you want.
Sure. Yeah.
So this course really asks for a master's degree,
Yeah.
which is what I'm gonna do. But I don't really feel the art environment, which is something really fundamental to me,
Mm.
because it's something that I live so much. So so that really impacts me, you know.
Yeah.
I don't
Absolutely.
like this kind of talk that we are having. I don't really have in with anyone here.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, I do still have some really creative friends, but in my hometown,
Yeah.
and I go there like twice a month. So
That's good, man. It's you know, it's something that it took me a really long time in my life to find people that I can like have conversations about creativity with. Like other people who not only like maybe you were making this distinction earlier, like not just people who like to draw on the side or it's something they've done a little bit, but like people who really need to make stuff. And like meeting those kinds of people in my life has made a big difference, but it took me a really long time. And even now, like I can't say that I have that many of them. You know, like a lot of my friends aren't creative, or at least like not in the same way. Let's say like they have more like traditional jobs and they do things that are more, let's say more corporate. But like the few friends that I do have who are pursuing this more seriously, it's like so important, man. And it's like so great to have a support system of people. So I'm sad to hear that you don't have that, even though you're taking an art course. But you know, I also think it's yeah, it might be a matter of maybe like not at this stage or at this place, but wherever you go on to next. Because I'm sure wherever you go, you're going to be pursuing art and making stuff, and I'm sure that you will like stumble or find your way into a group of people or a community that will like understand that and be able to support you as well. Is the goal for you kind of like as you're looking forward, like you want to make paintings? Is that it? Like you want to be a painter? Yeah,
mhm.
amazing, man. That's so
I
cool.
do have the photography part.
Yeah.
I'm really into that, but with the few time I have, I'm just focusing on my attention on the painting and drawing. But the
Mhm.
photography, it's really it's still a big part for me. It's on pause.
Okay.
I
Nice. I
still
got you.
do photography work. I'm a photographer of a band here, Deep in the Abyss.
Nice.
Um, but yeah, I do have another page with just photos, but it's on pause. But it's mainly painting. Yes,
The paint. Yeah. The
if I had
painting
to
is
choose,
number
I would.
one.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, man. It's is it something that you're already like starting to in terms of like doing commissions and like selling work and like exhibiting stuff? Is that something you've already started doing? I don't know that I saw any of that on your Instagram page.
in photography or in general.
In painting, I mean, like specifically with the painting.
Oh yeah, I'm lucky enough to sell paintings. Right now, I have two commissions,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and and sometimes I sell one like well, I do two types of work, or people buy paintings that I already painted
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and they are on my page, or they ask for one a commission. So I would say there's 50-50 of them, and I'm lucky enough to sell things.
Yeah.
uh, and and yeah, I do sell. It's not every day. It's not nearly enough for me to drop out of school.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
But I do win money with art, and without it, there's a lot of investments that I wouldn't be able to make.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, I've been on the exhibitions too, art fairs.
Amazing, man.
I don't have a very big curriculum per se, but I
Yeah.
started this 3 years ago. So selling paintings and being in small exhibitions and stuff with just this little time, I think it's a very big achievement for me.
Yeah. Absolutely, man. It's amazing. I think it's great. You know, like I know there's a lot of people who start painting or making like art and they feel like they can't actually start sharing it or having exhibitions or like putting it out into the world because they're not ready yet. And I really think there's like something to be said for just like trying it and like you're always going to be learning and growing and getting better. I'm the same way, obviously. Like I'm always gonna like, everything I do, I'm always hoping to grow and get better. But like I'm glad that even from an early stage, like I started trying to share stuff and have a little pop-up exhibition in a coffee shop or something like that. Like I think it's a really important thing.
Exactly.
It's a great way to learn how to I don't know, like how to prepare like a whole body of work, for example, like six paintings for a collection or a show, like even if it's not in some big gallery or whatever, like it's still a great thing to have. Man, this is a question that I had much earlier when we were talking about something, but it came back to me just now because we're talking about painting again. um, you were talking about how color is important to you when you're painting, and I'd be really curious to hear more specifics about like how you approach color on your painting. Like, how do you choose this color versus what's the next color going to be? Like, what is that process like when you're working on a painting?
Well, like I said, I still have a lot to learn on the relationships between colors. Um, but with between the drawing and painting skills, I would say the colors are my main strength. But still, there's a lot to work on. But going to your question, um, my process is it's very not. You couldn't write it on a paper.
Okay.
There's a lot. Most of my paintings, I just start. I always need to have canvas, free
Sure.
canvas. Um, but a lot of times I just start, and of course I start to realize what colors work better, and I search about it. I watch videos, I read things to improve that. Um, but I don't know, like blue, it's the color I use the most, and I would say it's almost on all paintings. And
Okay.
I've really been into the relationship between the primary colors.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's something that I really think about when I paint, because it's just well, being my main strength does not mean I can just rest. It's it's because that is my main strength that I really really want to get better.
Sure.
So yeah, I just consult things online to
Okay.
improve. It's not a very thing that I have established.
So it's
You
not
know?
like an intuitive thing. It's more something that you're kind of thinking about and like deciding very concretely when
Oh
you're
no,
working
it's
with
very
colors.
intuitive.
It is
It's mainly
intuitive.
intuitive.
Okay. But
But
you
with the
said you
practice, you see like this color works best and this doesn't.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay. Okay, I see what you mean. So it's like a combination of you like learning about color and what works, like let's say some theory, and then like using that to become more intuitive, like approach it more intuitively as you go. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, man.
I wanted to return to the thing you said earlier about artists not showing their work.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
please, man.
I think you can't overcome the fact that you are learning,
Hmm.
but why not showing it? If I thought like that, oh, I'm not good enough. I still have a lot to work on, and I'm a student. I'm no near a professional level, but I'm proud of what I do.
Yeah.
Sometimes I don't like it, but I know it's my best.
Hmm.
So I show it. And if I didn't, I wouldn't sell. I wouldn't get invited to do things.
Hmm.
So I would lose a lot. If I focused on the I'm not good enough yet, I wouldn't have anything what I have. And I have a very good thing for my age, I would say. Um just because of that little change of trying, because you can't lose when trying. You can make risks,
Hmm.
and have like spending money on something and maybe that didn't really work. But risks are always good. Risks are the best thing on art because it's such a wobbly field. There's
Yeah.
like an infinite amount of ways that you can be this word
Successful.
successful. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So you just have to risk. There's really no. It's something that I really see on other artists of my age. They don't really try them. They don't really experiment, which is curious because it's one of the topics that that I wanted to talk about. It's the inflexibility of some artists and how that can betray themselves. And by this
Hmm.
I mean how some artists stick to one style, and I'm talking about emerging artists because of
Sure.
course as you grow you develop one style, but when you start you don't really have a style.
No.
I have a painting page with 90 paintings, and I say openly I don't have a style,
Mhm.
and I have a lot. I've already did a lot of work, but I don't want to really stick to that thought of creating a style. I don't really think that's that important. So I don't want to be comfortable just yet. I still want to experiment at all. I think experimenting it's really the your biggest friend as an emerging artist, because you just one day you are doing something, the other day you go a completely different path, and maybe you just found your style out of nowhere. But
Just by accident. Yeah.
yeah, and new artists really grab onto that, creating a style, and that really betrays them sometimes. It's what I think.
Yeah, I think it also depends what people are looking for, right? Because I think some people like for me, I agree with you. Like the experimentation is where a lot of the value of painting comes from. That's where I get a lot of the fulfillment and the excitement is from trying new things and like leaving my comfort zone, like you said, and being willing to attempt different techniques or different styles or something that I'm not used to doing, because that's where the fun is. And for me, that's a really big part of painting, is trying to make it fun and enjoyable and make it fulfilling. But I also think a lot of people approach it with a different perspective. And I think also a lot of young artists, if they are, let's say, like very determined to make it as a full-time artist and they want to make a career out of it, there's a lot of pressure as well to find a style or to do a certain kind of painting. Or like if they discover one style that works for them and people are buying it, then there's a lot of pressure for them to continue to do that, right? Because they have to think about, getting a paycheck or something like that. So this is I'm kind of just playing devil's advocate here, because I can see why like someone would potentially fall into that, trap of not experimenting very much anymore. But it also is like, some people, that's to them, that's it's a not as important, let's say. Like for them, if they find one style of painting and they really love doing it, like just that's what they want to do all the time, then maybe for them that's like a happy way to work, right? I don't know that it's like the same for everyone, basically.
Well, I really don't disagree with you.
Hmm.
um but let's say in my case, paying for 3 years, I don't think it's enough for someone to declare that they found the style, because even the masters of painting didn't find the style in such short time.
Hmm.
And I'm not giving the guilt to the artist, because I'm totally aware of the pressure the media and the art field can put on them. Um, but I think it's really something that we can break, you know.
Mm-hmm. What do you mean like by breaking? Like how do you feel like what would you say to like another young artist who you feel like isn't experimenting as much as you think maybe they would like to? Like is there something you would tell them or say to them?
Um, well, that's that's really difficult to answer. If they weren't experimenting, Well, I don't know. I guess I would say that you have what he needs, you like it, and that's everything you need to
Mm-hmm.
make art. So why rush?
Mm-hmm.
You know, like
Mm.
life is such a long time. You have such long time. You are so young.
Mm.
So why close yourself in one style?
Yeah,
Because maybe you can find something that you like better. And I guess we can all agree that making the same thing every time, every day, every year, it's tiring. Even for
absolutely.
the masters of painting, which is the reference I always go to, they change their style. Well, of course, there's a pattern. They have the brushwork and the colors, but they changed. and
Yeah,
and
yeah.
and the style, it's something that I really think it's problematic as,
Mm.
again, as emerging, because it's different when you have a career. It's very different. I'm always talking about emerging here.
Mm-hmm.
The style in this young and new artist is, it's such a strong word and such powerful word. It's like a boss.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
You
like
have to have a
it's a lot of
style. You need
pressure.
to have always the same colors, always the same. Um, but finding a style can be really pretty too.
Yeah,
Don't
I
don't
also
don't
I
get me wrong. I'm not like against the
man,
style.
not at all. I
Um,
totally hear what you're saying, man.
I just
I
think
think
it.
yeah.
Go ahead.
No, go for it. It's okay, man. Please go ahead.
I really think it's a two-side blade.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think it really describes it well. But it has. I think it's a word that has too much meaning, because you can lose yourself from what made you start, that is enjoying it, and style can
Absolutely.
take that away. And like you said, you have a very specific style. You can, if I looked at of a painting,
Mm-hmm.
if I looked at a painting that you did but didn't know it was you, I would probably say it's yours.
Yeah.
But but you said before that sometimes you need to go out the lines and experiment.
Man, 100%. I'm always experimenting. But I think for me, it's, well, I have, I guess, two things to say. Like, in terms of the experimentation, that's like a huge part of why I keep painting. Because, like, if I was only doing one thing all the time, I would get really, really bored. But I also think that, like, I have gotten to a point where I do have some mode of expression that I've developed that you could call a style. And the experimentation is less like different than it used to be. Like experimenting for me used to mean I'm gonna do a watercolor landscape today, and then I'm gonna do an abstract acrylic painting tomorrow, and then I'm gonna do a oil portrait the next day. Like when I really was starting out, it was about like sucking up as much knowledge and practice as possible, which means the experimenting had to be very varied and diverse. Whereas now, experimenting for me is a little bit different. It's not so much that like I'm going to change everything and like paint on cardboard instead of canvas, or like use my toes instead of my hands to paint. Like this isn't what I see experimenting as so much anymore. It's more about like making new decisions and thinking in new ways within this box, or this kind of like guideline that I've set for myself as some kind of like aesthetic or style that I've developed. And for me this is valuable because like it definitely allows me to also like create work that is recognizable and is maybe like a little bit easier for me to sell. So from like a practical perspective it's helpful, but it also allows me to still have that kind of experimenting and kind of keep things interesting, right? And I will say, like, there is a big part of me, man, like, especially recently over the past few months, that like would love to like break free of it all and just go like 360, do something totally crazy and different, like that nobody would recognize as mine, like something really, really weird. But like I I think for me now the stakes are a little bit higher. Like it's a little bit harder for me to do that kind of, at least like I can do it privately, I would say, but I also like don't have the time necessarily to be like running those kinds of experiments as much as I would like to. And I also think there's an element of fear too, because I've gotten so used to working in the way that I'm working and I'm very comfortable with it. So even when I'm doing small experiments, like it still feels kind of safe. And like I'm definitely afraid on some level of like making some enormous change and doing something different, because I don't know where it's going to take me, right? It's almost like starting painting all over again. Like the idea of changing my style entirely and it's like doing a massive, like crazy experiment. It's like going from square one again. And obviously it's not like I have a lot of like experience and, stuff that I've learned over the past few years that I would incorporate into it. But yeah, man, I think this I like the idea of like the way that you're talking about it for emerging artists. I think you're right in saying that like it is really important to practice lots of different things and like don't put too much focus or energy on trying to develop a style immediately. Because I also think if you're forcing yourself into a style of painting or trying too hard to discover something that's a unique form of expression, you're never going to find it. Like for me, style was something that I developed over many years, not on purpose, but by accident through experimentation. And it was something I found, right? And is continuing to develop and change. But like, you're right that there's like, I think a lot of pressure, especially for people, because the market is so saturated. There's so many artists now, man. And everybody has, a website and an Instagram page and a TikTok and all of it. Like there's a lot of competition. And so I think there's a lot more pressure for young artists to try and really like hone in on one form of expression. And I think that experimentation is definitely really, really important and that more people should like prioritize it, I guess.
Well, the market plays a big role on this because it's such a shady thing. Um, but again, I really want to make that distinction for people that hear this because it's my opinion. It's really only about emerging artists because what you said, everything that you said, I agree.
Mhm.
As someone builds a career and has like established something and has a lot of followers and galleries working for them, or vice versa, it's complicated to do such big change. But like you said, it's still important to you. You just use that experimentation and adapt it to your necessities right now. uh,
Exactly, man.
but it's still something important.
Yeah.
And I think as a young artist draws the same things, uh, always the same way, and they declare that they found a style, I don't think they found a style. I think they are just losing themselves
Mm.
because you are stuck. Finding a style is not freedom when you
No,
start.
no.
It's it's the new things that build skills. And I found field painting 1 month ago and I realized, wow, this is something that really can improve my style. I'm not gonna be a field paint artist, probably not.
You never
But I
know.
I never know, of course, but I don't think I will.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
And but I still see there something to learn.
Mm.
So I don't think emerging artists need to be scared of trying because they don't really have a lot to lose.
Man, I really agree with you. And I like this idea as well, which I think you're kind of touching on of like I'll put it in terms of myself because I don't want to try like, kind of like to talk about other people's experiences too much. But like for me, such an important part of like the first 3 or 4 years that I was painting was learning how to fall in love with the process of painting and like really just like cherish the act of doing it more than anything else. So it wasn't about I need to find a style. It wasn't about I need to make masterpieces. I need to sell paintings. Like I didn't really think about any of that, man. I did it in a way that prioritized like the joy that I get from actually making something, right? And like I think this for me was so helpful because now like as long as I can hold on to that feeling of joy when I'm making something and I don't lose that, regardless of all the other nuances and like things that change, like if I can maintain that sense and that feeling, then I can never really lose because that's something that I will always have and no one else can take away from me. And like for me, that's a really important way to look at painting, like let's say as a hobby or something that you do privately in your own life, but also as a career and like something a little bit more serious. And I think unfortunately a lot of people who tend to like take the path of pursuing art more seriously and try to make a career out of it, it's easy to lose sight of that joy and that feeling of being in love with the process of making something, because things get much more complicated when all of a sudden you have to pay your rent because of your paintings, and it's like, well, this isn't so joyful for me anymore. Or there's like some kind of pressure from another artist who is doing something similar to you, and like I don't know, there's all kinds of things that can happen that complicate that process. But for me, like I this is one of the biggest things that I try and like talk about and share with people when they ask me is like, man, falling in love with the process and trying your best to hold on to that as much as possible. Obviously, I painting every single day. Not every day is the best day of my life. I'm not saying that I wake up like dancing and like, smiling all the time because I'm painting all day. Of course not, man. Like I live a real life. I get depressed. I have anxiety, all kinds of shit. But like I remind myself, I purposely think about this, right? And I purposely try and like remind myself when I'm feeling low that like this thing that I'm doing it because I love doing it, because I love the act of it, right? And like as long as I can remember that, then most of the time I can like get myself out of a bad situation. And that's, yeah, I don't know. I don't know if you agree with me or not, but this is something that's really important to me.
I really never really. Oh, I doubled myself here. I haven't really thought about the process, because right now when I think about my painting, um, the thing that has more weight, it's get better, and pay to get better.
Mm.
And maybe I don't have the falling in love with the process, and maybe I need that, but
Maybe
I
not,
I
man.
I don't know. I
I
don't
mean,
know.
look, I here's the thing. This is why I also try to put it in terms of myself, right? Because it's like I think some people can hear that and they can connect to it and relate to it, and some people maybe not. Like we all do things
Mm-hmm.
for different reasons. So I'm definitely not saying that this is how everybody should approach painting or making art at all. And like for you, if it is about the growing and the learning more, like that's amazing too, man. I think everybody has to find their own motivation for continuing to do something. I think like the for me the one thing that I would like hope is similar is that like for you as much as like the final product is important and you want to make something that looks good, like it's not the most important thing. There's something else that you're also pursuing there, which is learning and knowledge and improvement and growth. And those are all like very, very, that's like I think by pursuing that, you will probably feel more fulfilled by the journey of like painting a lot and practicing, because you have something tangible that isn't just about the product to like kind of go after. And I think that's really important.
Yeah, I think I've cared more about that. Well, I tend to post things that I think people would like, but
Mm-hmm.
I try not to lose myself on that,
Yeah.
because I'm not painting for them. I'm painting for me.
Yeah.
And of course, sometimes you paint things that you don't like as much, like in a commission. But it's still you. It's. I think it's very wrong to pursue a style that you don't really like, but you know it's popular. You know,
Yeah. That I agree with.
um, and I think that really introduces to one topic I wanted to discuss, that I talked to you earlier. That is the way Instagram as an influence on the art world, because of how demanding it is,
Yeah.
like in like a competition, and how it squishes artists for them to throw up a new piece every day. Do you feel do you feel something related to this?
A little bit. I think I used to feel the pressure a lot more. And like it was something because like I don't know, man, I used to have this mindset where I felt like Instagram was essential to like me being an artist, that I had to be posting on there regularly and building a following and like getting to a certain point. I felt like it was kind of like the most feasible path to success was to like build some kind of like following on Instagram. And man, more and more, I don't think that's the case at all.
Really?
I think it's really not, man. And like, I think some people have made it work for themselves and they play the game and they post something every day. They make a lot of reels, they follow trends, whatever it might be. And like that leads them to something that is like, successful. But for me, man, more and more, it's actually like taking time away from like me being able to bring art and paintings to like people locally and like build community or reach people, build a network, sell paintings, whatever it is, like in a way that makes me feel a lot better, which is by doing it with people who live in the same city as me. And whether that's like having a
So,
show or like having people come over to my studio and come and hang out for the day, whatever it is, like trying to do that in a more grassroots way for me is a lot more fulfilling. And like I have look, I make reels, obviously, like I make videos and stuff. Like I am definitely like using Instagram as a marketing and a promotional tool for myself. But like the more that I do it, the less that I enjoy it and the more empty it feels. And through that whole process, I've never once been like, okay, I need to hop on this trend. Like I need to use this particular audio clip that all the artists are using because it's going to make me go viral. I never do that. I make shit that I want to make. I make something that I think is interesting or share a thought that I think is interesting, and then I post it. And I don't care about post, you have to post 5 times a week, you have to post 6 stories a day, whatever it is. I never listen to any of that, man. I don't think it's, look, I know a lot of people do, and I know that the pressure is there, but I don't think it's essential to listen to all of that kind of like the rules of how to use these platforms in order to be successful. Because, man, ultimately, like it's, maybe it'll get you somewhere, but I also think a lot of the kind of like, you look at someone who has 100K followers or something and makes a reel every day, whatever, like it's a very superficial number, and that has really no reflection on, number one, like the value of their work. It has no reflection on like really their intentions and what is important to them. It has no reflection on how successful they are, right? How much money they make. Like it might appear a certain way, but you never really know what that is. So this trap of like, really kind of pursuing the route of being like big on Instagram for me is like less and less important. And I'm finding myself like moving away from it more and more.
as I see. That's really interesting because I'm not in a position that I can really give my opinion about it because I'm still very small per se on Instagram. So it's very interesting that you have that vision because you have a decent amount of followers. My hometown is half your followers. So
That's crazy, dude.
yeah, it's really crazy
That's
because
insane.
I live in a small town. I don't know what you consider small, but for me it's small, medium.
Yeah.
It's 30,000. It's already a decent number of people. So it's really crazy for me to think that you have doubled that number on followers. So it's really interesting for you to have that vision. That it's something that I have to be honest that I didn't have didn't have and don't have at all because my mind makes sense for artists to makes sense that artists with a lot of followers tend to have things easier because brands want the numbers. So for
Put,
a
yeah.
sponsor, you need the number.
Mhm.
Sponsors don't really care about your quality, but I guess that is interesting for you to say that it's more important for you to build a physical community. So in your country or city, I think
Yeah.
that's what you meant.
100%, man. And look, I'm not saying there's not some benefit to having like, a higher follower count on Instagram. Like there's a lot of things that can be positive about it as well. And like sometimes I do sell paintings to people that live in like across the world in different countries and like connect with people. Even like you, man. I never would have met you. We never would have had this conversation without Instagram. And like there's
Yeah.
some value in that for sure.
Hmm.
And I think also like there's a lot of people who do get brand deals and sponsorships and all kinds of other stuff because of the follower count that they have on there. But I guess the point that I'm making is that that's never the goal for me. That was never the goal. It's not my priority. It's not something I think about. It's not something I'm looking for. What I'm looking for is a way to, number one, express myself as freely as possible, to paint as often as possible, to continue improving and growing, just like you're trying to do, and also to build community and like interact with other human beings because of art. And it doesn't have to be my art. It can be your art, it can be someone else's art. But that relationship, that kind of like process of getting to know people and like connecting with other humans through the medium of creativity to me, man, is so valuable. And the more that I'm trying to do it, the more I'm taking like all of the eggs I had in the Instagram basket and I'm slowly moving them over to this other basket because it feels so much more fulfilling. And I also think it has a much like more genuine impact in the sense that I can feel what the result of what I'm doing. When I post something to Instagram, I get no feeling from the result of it. You look at the number of likes it has or something like that, how many comments, whatever. It's empty. Doesn't matter. But like, man, when you go and I do a lot of exhibitions here in like bars, cafes, just like little pop-up shit, right? With two friends of mine. We're part of a collective and we do this stuff frequently. And like when you go and do something like that and you're at an opening, I have one this Friday actually, and like somebody comes that you've never met before and they love one of your paintings, or they're like, hey, I also do painting, or I'm a musician, or like, hey, I'm throwing this event. And all of a sudden you make a connection in real life with somebody that is your neighbor who goes to the same grocery store as you, who like goes to the same, coffee shop, whatever. That experience, man, is really, really valuable for me. And what it also allows is like the process of building a community or a network of people here where I live that I get to go and meet and see face to face and really like see the reactions, have those human moments with them. And man, more and more, like really, even just this morning, man, I was talking to a friend of mine. He lives in Lisbon. He's not Portuguese, but he lives there. And we were talking about like, man, how much I feel like Instagram is almost like ruining art in a way. Like people have put so much emphasis and energy into it. At least a lot of people do, not everybody. That and like I'm definitely guilty of this as well. And it has like kind of made me forget what the priority is and what's really important. And like this idea of doing it somewhere more local where you live, like it's not as hard as it sounds. And it's actually for me like a very, very good option for emerging artists, for young people who are trying to be painters or sculptors or whatever it is, instead of trying to like put all this energy into a digital presence. Like go to your coffee shop, go to the place around the corner that you go to once a week, right, to answer your emails or whatever, and just ask them, can I put my paintings up here? Or whatever. If they say no, go to another one, find another one. But man, that way you are creating something tangible in the real world that you, I promise you, will feel the result of so much more than anything I've ever felt, any kind of success I've ever felt from Instagram. That's just my opinion. I'm sorry, I ranted a little bit at you. I apologize, but
No,
it's
that's
something I'm
really
passionate
interesting.
about.
That's really interesting. I guess it really serves as an example of for other artists that may are being controlled with Instagram. And I'm not gonna lie, that really affects me. Instagram has certainly an influence on me that I try to escape, but it's not easy.
Yeah.
It's really not easy, but it's really interesting that you say that. So I guess your advice for emerging artists is to explore what you have, right?
It's a good way to put it.
Explore your
And
city, your country.
absolutely, man. And look, I'm not saying people shouldn't use Instagram. It's so valuable. There's a lot, like I said, there's so many things that are like positive about it, and like it's something to also use. But like for me, like it's just one of the tools in my tool
Hmm.
belt. It's one resource, and it's like right now maybe one of the bigger ones. But in the next year, I'm hoping it's one of the smallest ones, honestly. Like I would
For
rather
you.
be, yeah, 100%. And like, so I think it's also, and look, man, here's the other thing is like some people, if you're, I'm a very introverted person, but I also like am capable of being social and like going out into the world and talking with people and doing that kind of stuff. If you're somebody that like, has like let's say really bad anxiety or it's like really hard for you to do that and Instagram is an easier way to go for it. That's awesome. Like that's
Yeah,
one of the benefits for certain people is that it does
totally.
allow for that anonymity or that like experience of just doing it digitally. If that's how you feel more comfortable, that's amazing. But if you are the kind of person who is willing to go in and just ask somebody, hey, do you mind if I like, hey, can I talk to the manager? Can I put some paintings up here, whatever? Like, try it, go for it.
Hmm.
Like even if it's a little scary at first or uncomfortable, like seriously, go and do it. Whoever you are, if you're listening to this, because like, it's just another way to approach it that might lead to an opportunity that you never would have expected or would have gotten just from Instagram and social media.
Well, I think that Instagram is something that you should really have as an artist.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think it really makes the difference, and or if it doesn't make the difference, it has a lot of potential of doing it. You know, um, and I think, of course, that the physical career is important of exploring in your city and trying to promote your stuff. And I think it's very valuable and probably more than Instagram because who knows, Instagram may end tomorrow. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
but I think it's a tool that you should really have.
Yeah.
But can be problematic because it's very difficult to find a balance. Well, I feel this, and I it's what I think from what I see. I think it's very difficult to find a balance on posting and using Instagram as a tool and not being overtaken by it
Mm-hmm.
because it's so much so deep in our lives. Instagram
Yeah.
has clearly has power to change the art world. I really think it really changed the last few years of art styles.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think it started from something good, that is you have a chance to have a word and to promote yourself. But it's not a public place. It's not a public place. It's a
Mm-hmm.
private place. And this is something that my teacher told me just today. Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, all those things, they aren't public. They show what they want.
Yeah.
And 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 if you are really good and if you are the best, but you don't have what Instagram wants, you're probably not going to be promoted. And
Of
I think
course,
that's
man.
an illusion people have. um People think it's public, but it's not. It's really
It's
not. That's why trends exist.
yeah.
They
I've
want to
never
for you to see ads and buy things. Go ahead, sorry.
No, man, I've just never heard it said like that, that it's private, not public, but it's such a brilliant kind of thought about it, right? It's not public. It's because it is curated and it's being like, there are rules. The Instagram as a platform or any other social media platform favors certain kinds of behavior. And they kind of give you hints about, hey, if you do this, maybe we'll show more of your
Yeah.
stuff. And so a lot of artists go, okay, I'm going to do this and play all of these little games and like follow these rules because I want my stuff to be seen more. And then end up losing themselves in the process, right? This is very dangerous for sure, man. Yeah. And I think you're right. A lot of people don't necessarily realize it or think about it.
I think it's the chance that motivates all this because people
Yeah.
see artists getting millions of likes, and those same artists tell, I started from nowhere, then I made an Instagram, and 3 years, 5 years later, I have this. So
Yeah.
people see that and think, damn, there's a chance for me to be like that. And which is partially true,
I
But
think it is actually partially true. Like it's possible.
it's possible, but it's not totally possible. And it has a pretty side, but the other side is it will give you anxiety because you scroll on your feed, you have 2 likes on a post, on an artwork that you worked for 100 hours.
Mm.
And how will you feel? You will see that and look, damn, no one likes my artwork. I'm not enough. Maybe my art
Mhm.
isn't that good. It seems so simple, but it's really problematic.
Mhm.
The post system. The public thing about it is that everyone can post, but
Man,
the
I agree with you.
promoting part, it's not.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
yeah, I
man.
think it's a very bad thing, and it has a lot of influence on um, the ego of people and the self-esteem mainly.
Mhm.
And I think there's a reason for this the younger generations as mine. And as yours, you aren't that old, probably. I don't know your age.
I'm 27, man. Yeah, I'm not that old.
Okay. I think it really made an influence on mental health,
Mhm.
and yeah, that's it.
I agree with you, man. It's this is kind of a problem that I don't think has a solution quite yet, right? Because like yeah, I don't know. It's become such an enormous part of all of our lives, and a lot of people are starting to see the dangers and the bad sides of it, but we also rely on it in a lot of ways, especially if you're a business person trying to promote anything. And I don't know what the end of that is necessarily. I think we're all still trying to figure it out. But it is interesting to hear, like, talk about and kind of hear people's perspectives and opinions, especially in the creative fields, because I think it has become like very important to creative people as a tool. So it's kind of like, I don't know, trying to see what people's perspectives on it are is always very interesting to me.
Yeah.
Bruno, man, I'm gonna have to cut us off here because I need to leave here in about 10 minutes. But is there anything you would like to share or say before we leave this conversation? Something that's on your mind? We can always do another episode, man. I feel like we could keep talking for hours
Oh
for
yeah,
sure.
for sure.
But if
I
there's something
really
right now,
feel that we share a lot of things, that like a lot of opinions and even experiences that we have. And
hmm
even though our work it's different in aesthetically, I think we really share a lot, and I really felt the connection. You know.
yeah, absolutely, man. I agree with you. Yeah. Um, man, thank you so much for agreeing to do this. It was super fun to talk to you. I know there's what two topics that we wanted to discuss that we didn't even get to, maybe.
3,
But
maybe 4.
maybe more. Yeah, exactly. But man, we'll definitely have another conversation. I'm also hoping to come to Portugal at the end of this summer, maybe in the fall. So if I make it there and we can figure out a way to do like an episode in person, that would be awesome too. Or maybe
That
just
would
meet
be
for a
great.
coffee and
Just
hang out. And yeah, that would be great,
give
man.
me a call and anything. Maybe we can make a painting together.
That would be awesome.
That would
Let's
be
do that.
awesome.
Let's do that, man. I love
Yeah.
that idea. We'll make our painting together. Okay, enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you so much, Bruno, and I will speak to you
Thank you.
soon. Yeah? All right. Ciao,
Yeah,
ciao.
sure.